Hey guys, what's going on? It's Broken Nose Gaming here. I am still on the laptop. That being said, I did make some minor adjustments on the laptop, especially when it came to the microphone that I'm using. I found a small windscreen slash pop filter. I'm hoping that'll help out when it comes to the audio quality. I did notice it was a little airy in the last video. Anyways, this video is probably something I should have done a while ago because the offers have already changed. This is the Black Friday special for Blitz. It started in early November, and it had a selection of 20 some odd tanks that you could get for gold. And I got 2 tanks out of that selection. I got the Senlac and I got the Char Future 4. And I was going to do a video on the other tanks and everything like that. And then suddenly it changed again. It was like hacked Friday, essentially. I guess they loaded a second set of offers. I also did get 2 tanks from this as well. It's the Object 590 and the Caliban. Those were the 2 tanks I didn't have. But I just wanted to kind of go over really quick some of the offers that they have for Black Friday in this event. If we go to the store, as you can see, the Black Friday is the first tab on here. You will see a lot of container specials. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the black box specials. Second row here, you'll notice there are some tanks on special here. There's also some golden containers and golden boosters. It's really cheap. The boosters might not be a bad deal. $1.19 for 500 gold alone is probably okay. The containers, 3,000 gold for $6. That's not too bad. You get more black boxes, which don't think you're going to get something massive out of that. And you get what looks like an awesome container. So you might get something nice out of that. These are all the tanks that you can get in the awesome container. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. As you can see, there are 2 tanks that are for sale for cash money. That is the Centurion RAAC Dingo and the T95E6 Piranha. But below that, starting at this row, we have a selection of tanks that are for sale for gold. Some are fairly new. Some have been around for a minute, and some are low tier. So I was going to kind of just brush over these really quick. We'll look at the prices really quick. So there's the Kampfpanzer 50T, that's 19,000. The Object 772 for 17,500. The M60 for 15,000. There's the Object 752 for 11,000. The Object 452K for 10,000. Kampfpanzer 70 for 9,500. The AMX 31 prototype, which is 9,000 gold. The ST62 version 2 for 9,000 gold. The Type 5 ck3d for 8,500 gold. The EVP, I call it the Shrek. It's 8,000 gold. The T54E2 for 7,000 gold. Samoa SM for 6,500 gold. The Sturzwagen 81 for 5,500 gold. Super Hellcat for 4,000. The M41D or Maid for 3,500. T26E3 Eagle 7 for 2,500. And then finally there's the Britannia Panther for 1,500 and the Pudel for 2,250 gold. So there are the 2 other tanks, which I cannot unfortunately remember their prices, but that would be the Object 590 and the Caliban. Those are the only 2 that I bought from this list. I surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, own the rest of these tanks already. But I was going to kind of just run down and take a look at some of these tanks, and we can start from the tier 10s and go down. So the M60 actually just got its HD model. The M60 is basically just a slightly different M48 from what I remember. It's an okay tank. If you like the M48, I'm sure you'd like the M60. 15,000 gold, sorry. That's quite a bit. I think I got my M60 in the auction last year for like 10,000. I could have gone lower, but 15 just seems high for me, especially because the M60 is an older tank. It actually used to be a premium. It's now a collector. I don't know if they adjusted the credit earnings on this tank, but the M60 was one of the few tanks that, even though it was a premium, it actually did not earn like a premium. So there's that. But it's cool to have in your garage. But if you have gold and you're looking to spend, this wouldn't be the first thing I'd go after, personally. It's a little dated. Next up on the list will be the T95E6. Now, this is one of the tanks that is purchasable for money. I believe there's two different prices. It's actually slightly lower if you go to the Wargaming Premium shop on the website. Bear that in mind. You can actually get it for less than what it says in the in-game store if you go on the website. This tank also just got its HD model recently, and I believe it also got a slight buff. I have not played it since the buff. I will probably check it out soon. But this tank is pretty good. It also has pretty decent DPM. I know it did get a DPM buff a while back as well. A few people actually consider this to be one of the better tier 10 tanks out there when it comes to like premium collector. So that's not a bad deal if you're looking to spend cash money and not gold on one of these tanks. So next up is the Kampfpanzer 50T. This is another tier 10 collector tank. Now this tank started out kind of like the KPZ 70PE, where it was in a crate or via certificate, and it only had a 0.05% drop chance. That has changed. It's been in some draws. I know it was also in the 10th anniversary shop for, I believe, less than what they're selling it for during this Black Friday, Hack Friday. People basically say this thing's a better Leopard. It's got better armor than the Leopard, which the Leopard has no armor. And I will say, from the times that I have played this tank, I have managed to bounce a few shells that I definitely would have bounced in the Leopard. It's not a bad tank. I mean, it's not the first thing I would jump on, but it's not bad. If you don't have anything else that you really want, I guess you could spend your gold on this guy. Up next is the Object 772. This is a Soviet Tier 10 Heavy. This one's kind of strange, because I've heard really good things about it. I ended up getting it in a lucky crate that went all the way up to Tier 10. The tank is fairly solid. It has decent stats, but I did find myself, I don't know, I found myself getting penned a lot in this tank. This is another tank where, if I guess you don't have anything else you're looking for, this wouldn't be a bad tank to get. We're going to move down into Tier 9 now, and the first Tier 9 that we can look at is the Kampfpanzer 70. This tank has been around for a minute too, and this tank's kind of weird. So it reminds me of the event tank, the KV Junior, in the sense it's just a tank with a massive, I think it's a 152 mounted on it. And it's got a pretty long reload. And, I mean, again, it's kind of shaped decently to where you can bounce some shots. Your hull is pretty weak. I am not a huge fan of this tank because of the long reload. Due to the fact that it's been around for a while, this isn't a tank that I would necessarily jump on either. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's fun when you hit tanks for, you know, large alpha, but the long reload, and there's just, at Tier 9, I feel like there are better tanks to get. I wouldn't necessarily say go for this tank unless you really like playing those big kind of derpy high alpha tanks. Then maybe you'll enjoy it. But I got this, I can't even remember when I got this, but I've not played it recently because I'm just not a huge fan of the reload rate on the main gun. And then following that, we have the Object 452K. Another not super new, but newer than some of the other tanks that I've talked about when it comes to when it was introduced. The 452K is kind of an interesting tank. It does okay. It can output some decent damage. It can output some decent alpha. The problem with this tank is the sides. I believe the sides in the rear are incredibly thin on it. So granted, yes, you're very sloped, you're very angled up in the front, but if somebody catches you on the side, I believe I was able to like HE the 452K, and it did some massive amounts of damage. So the 452K is not a tank that I would go straight out and get. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. The tank there are better tier 9 heavy tanks, especially in this sale. Speaking of, the next tier 9 in the Black Friday, Hack Friday sale is the Object 752. Now, the Object 752, I feel like is a pretty hyped tank, but at the same time, I do think that the 752 does live up to its hype. It's got a 2-shot autoloader. It does decent amount of damage. It has decent armor. I don't have any problems with this tank, and this is probably one of the first tanks that I would say, if you don't have it and you have the gold, I'd probably go for this tank. This is not a bad tank to have. The 752, like compared to the previous tank, I would pick the 752 over the 452K. The 2-shot autoloader thing, just like the T77, like some people can get it to work, some people can't. I've not had any issues with the 2-shot autoloader. I'd much rather be able to dump 2 shells and have an okay-ish reload instead of having a very long reload on a 3-shell autoloader. 752, I feel like is a pretty good tank. And next we have the AMX 31 prototype. I don't even know how to say it, but this is a French medium, the tier 9. A lot of people actually consider this tank pretty good. I remember when I first got it, I was playing it. I actually had some pretty good games in it. But again, just because it has a pretty good reputation, if you had the gold and you don't have this tank, this is probably one that I would also spend some gold on. And then coming up next is the T54E2. And this, I will say, is another tank I would definitely recommend getting. The T54E2 is probably one of the better American Tier 8 heavies, if not maybe the best. The tank has a very strong turret. It has a fairly decent hull. The sides of the turret are okay. The sides and rear of the hull aren't the best. If you hold down on this thing, it's a pretty big menace, and it has one of those really oddly shaped hulls where you're going to get a lot of bounces. So that's definitely a tank I would probably recommend getting. I'm not even going to go too much farther into it. The T54E2 is pretty well known. So if you don't have this tank, this is a perfect opportunity to pick this one up. So up next is the Object 590. The Object 590 is kind of interesting. The hull definitely reminds me of like a Type 59. The turret kind of starts off as your standard soup bowl, and then it's kind of elongated in the back. From what I have researched, and I've played it myself, a lot of folks will say that the 590 kind of plays like a Type 59. It's just slightly worse. If you look at the specs really quick, the hull overall is pretty weak. The turret's pretty strong, but the hull is pretty weak on the 590. It is still one of the newer tanks in the lineup, so if you don't have it and you want to check it out, it might be a good time to do so. I'm figuring that these tanks that they are putting out in the Black Friday, Hack Friday event are not going to be tanks that they're going to put up in the auction, so this might be a good time to get them. Anyways, the next tank is the ST62 version 2. Now, this one's kind of a funny tank. This one came out a while ago. I can't remember when, but it came out with another German medium tank that also was like a high alpha, long reload, especially for a German. But the 62 version 2's kind of strange. It's kind of got that kind of like boat hole kind of going on. And then it's got a standard like soup bowl turret. It is pretty compact, especially if you compare it to like the 590. It is pretty compact. It almost kind of reminds me of an Astron Rex. The armor is okay. It's not bad, and with it being curved and sloped and everything like that, you might get some pretty troll bounces when it comes to it. This one's kind of interesting. It's not like particularly exciting. It's got okay mobility. If you don't have it or you want to check it out, cool. I mean, it's just kind of a weird, goofy looking little tank. I've had fun in it. It kind of also reminds me of like a 274A. Because the 274A is kind of like that swoopy, curvy kind of style tank, but this just kind of takes it up a notch. But it's not bad. It's fun, it's mobile, but I don't feel like it does anything really well. I don't know, maybe it's just kind of like an all-arounder tank, or maybe I'm playing it wrong. Could be one or the other. And now another tank that's been around for a minute, the Centurion RAAC Dingo. I will say, I think compared to other Centurions, it has a stronger upper front plate. But this kind of plays like the other Centurions, the quick firing, low-ish alpha, pretty decent mobility tank that has decent front armor. Honestly, there's not a whole lot to say about this one. This tank's pretty well documented. It's got a really strong turret, and it's got a fairly strong hull. It's fun to play. I've had good luck with it. It's probably another tank that I would say it's probably worth getting if you're willing to spend cash money, because this one is not one that's available for gold. It's available for either cash in the in-game store or on the Wargaming Premium Store website. And our next tank is the Caliban. Again, I cannot remember how much gold I spent on this tank. The Caliban is a meme. It really is. Like, if you look at the main gun, it's 150 millimeter. This is basically just a British KV-2 at tier 8. It has a 20-second reload. It does have Hesh, but the alpha is incredibly, like, there's two alphas. So there's, for the AP round, it's 580. For the HE round, or the Hesh round, it's 860. So this thing, it's a meme. If you can pen with the Hesh, oh, it's hilarious. It is hilarious. But you also have to wait 20 seconds. It also has horrible dispersion. It's like 0.4, and that's with 100% crew and like all of the crew skills and running refined gun. It's just not good. It is not a good gun. It is obviously meant to be up close and personal, dropping these shells in people's faces. It doesn't have a lot of armor, if I remember correctly. We can double check right now. Yeah, this tank is fairly thin. It's also fairly small for a heavy. Dude, honestly, like, I can't recommend this tank. It's a meme. It's hilarious. Like, this is a meme tank. It's, like I said, it's a KV-2 at tier 8. I mean, get it if you want, you know, to do that, I guess, but I don't know. Most of the time when I see Calibans on my team or the team I'm playing against, they don't last very long. They maybe get like 2 or 3 shots off at best, and then they die. So, I don't know. This is not a tank that I'm going to tell you to go run out and get. But if you want to do it for the memes, this is definitely the tank for you. So, up next is the Japanese tank destroyer, the Type 5 ck3d. I do like to call this the Japanese Jagdtiger. I mean, the shape alone is pretty similar to the Jagdtiger. It's that middle casemate style. It also, if we take a look at the stats here, carries a 127 millimeter gun, 1 millimeter smaller than the 128 that the Jagdtiger would carry. It's got fairly decent stats on that gun too. It's got fairly decent accuracy, got pretty good aim time. The pen is pretty nice, 266 on your standard, 313 on your premium. And your alpha isn't bad either, 440 on your standard, 425 on your premium. The only thing that really holds this tank back is its DPM. Since it has such a large caliber gun, its reload time is almost 11 seconds, and your DPM is like 2400. This is a tank that I got in crates, and I don't believe it's been sold outright yet. I could be wrong, but if you like the Jagdtiger style gameplay, you might like the ck3d. Up next is the Samoa SM. The Samoa SM is kind of an interesting tank because when it was first released, the AMX 5100 was much less armored than it is now. And one of the big things that the Samoa had over the AMX 5100 was it had armor. The downside was the Samoa was very slow and not nearly as mobile as the 5100. Now, things have kind of changed. They gave the 5100 a pretty strong, like, collar piece for the oscillating turret. It is much stronger than it used to be on the AMX 5100. The Samoa was its heavier, slower, more armored cousin. But now the Samoa is kind of... I wouldn't pick this tank. This is not a tank that I would even buy during the Black Friday event. Just go get the 5100 and call it a day. After that, we have the Striksvågen 81. This is kind of a weird tank. It's a Centurion clone, if I remember correctly. It's just the Swedish Centurion clone. They had this tank in the PC version. They also had the Primo Victoria, which was Sabaton version of this tank. In all reality, this we got this tank for free, I think, actually. They were giving this tank away for free as part of a subscription. So unless you had not been playing the game during that time, you should have this tank. And in all reality, I probably would not spend any gold on this tank. A, everyone got it for free. B, it's not that good. I see them a lot. So to put it on sale is actually a little confusing to me. But I also see them get mowed down fairly quickly. It does not have as strong armor as the Dingo, the Centurion, the Australian Centurion. I just can't recommend this tank. There are way better tanks to get, and you should have this tank for free already, unless you literally just started playing. And if that's the case, I mean, still, don't get this tank. I don't consider this a real good value by any stretch of the imagination. Following that, we have the strange ship TVP. It's the Shrek TVP tank destroyer. This tank kind of reminds me of a Hellcat at tier 8. It is very thinly armored. It's okay mobility wise. It's not like Hellcat fast, but it's mobile. It's got a pretty quick firing gun. It's got pretty good camo. This tank is kind of team dependent though, so if your team melts, you're also going to melt. Because you have no armor, and everyone can basically pen you right through the turret, because this turret is made out of, like, cardboard. And that's the reason why I run Spall Liner on it, because people will sling high explosive at this tank destroyer and just obliterate it. This is one of those, it's not as easy to play as you think it is. Like, yeah, some people play this tank by literally camping in the back, not being spotted because they have really good camo. It's okay. I got this from a massive crate, I believe. I don't play it too often, and when I do, it's really 50-50. Sometimes I get, those games where I do just get to kind of just pound and snipe things while I sit in the back. Other times I get focused and everyone slings HE at me, and even with the Spall Liner, I get decimated. So this is not one of the tanks that I would recommend maybe newer players go out and get. It's an interesting play style, but I don't think it's suited for everyone. That'll be all the tier 8s. So we're going to move into the tier 7s here. There is only 3. We start off with the T-26 E3 Eagle 7, which is based on a real tank that battled a Panther in World War II. It's basically a Pershing variant at tier 7. This one's equipped with a 90mm. It is not a very fast-firing 90mm. It has got okay DPM. Everything about this tank is fairly okay. It's fairly average. The big thing that the Eagle 7 has is I believe it has a modified free XP booster, so you get more free XP than you would normally from other tanks, premium collector tanks of that tier. I believe it's twice as much. I could be wrong. I've seen this thing go on sale quite a bit, so I'm, again, surprised that they put this out there. At this tier, though, at tier 7 and below, things are getting pretty inexpensive. I believe this one's fairly inexpensive. I think it's like 2,500 gold. So 2,500 gold for a tier 7. That's a pretty good deal. That's probably one of the only reasons I'd really recommend this tank, because that's a fairly good deal, and you'll do okay in it. It's just an average tank. It's not very specialized in anything other than getting you extra free XP. The next tier 7 that we'll look at is the Super Hellcat, which is just basically a Hellcat at tier 7. The Hellcat at tier 7 has the same 90mm gun. It basically just looks like the regular Hellcat. I believe it's a little bit faster, and I believe its rate of fire is a little bit better. Outside of that, I don't see these tanks last very long on the battlefield either. Hellcats are generally played, with camouflage, so... But I do see some Hellcat players that like to run and gun because the Hellcat is so fast. The problem that the Hellcat has is it has almost no armor, and at this tier you do not get the Spall Liner, so people will sling HE at you. It will go through your turret, it will go through your hull. You will not have a good day when you were spotted. This one's also probably one of the more expensive tier 7s. I believe it's 4,000 gold. So unless you're like a really big Hellcat fan, I probably would pass on this one. And finally, for the last tier 7, we have the Chinese M41D, or the Maid. The M41 is very similar to the Bulldog. It is a fast-firing, low-alpha, uh, fast-moving tank. The M41D, I guess if you like the Bulldog, you'll like the M41D. I don't feel like there's a whole lot to say about the M41D because it's very similar. It's just like the Chinese variant of the Bulldog. This one is cheaper than the Hellcat, but still more expensive than T26E7. If you're not a light player or you don't like light tanks, skip it. And finally, we have our two Tier 6s left in the lineup, which ironically, they're actually the same model tank. It's just one's for the French and one is for the European nation. We'll start with the French one, which is the Britannia Panther. Of the two, I actually prefer the Britannia over the Poudel, which is the other tank. The reason behind that is because overall, I feel like the Britannia is more... it's just easier to play than the Poudel. If we take a look really quick, we'll take a look at both of them. But if we take a look at the stats for the Britannia Panther, 100, 45, 45 for the turret, 80, 40, 40 for the hull. And then the gun, literally the DPM, the gun, the alpha, like all of that's the same. But the Poudel costs more gold than the Britannia Panther. The Britannia Panther is only like 1,500 gold. So if you only have 1,500 gold or you're looking for a tier 6, premium tank, this is it. I definitely recommend the Britannia Panther. I will take a look at the Poudel. Now, the Poudel, I'll show you here, is slightly different. So the Poudel has slightly less armor all around on the turret. It's 100, but 45 and 20 on the rear. The hull is also thinner overall at 70, 35, 20. The pen is slightly better on the Poudel, but the alpha is the same. Like the aim time, the accuracy, like the dispersion, like everything's really the same. Like the alpha is the same, the accuracy, the aim time, like all of this stuff is the same. It's just a slightly weaker armored but with better pen tank. Now, one of the things that the Poudel does get that the Britannia Panther doesn't is sandbags. I do run sandbags on this tank, so it does give it some more HP, which at this tier is nice, but it's only 50 more. I can get pretty similar if I ran improved assembly on the Britannia Panther. I just choose not to because the Britannia Panther having better armor at tier 6, I'd like to bump it up a little bit more and try to bounce more shots if I can. But the Poudel costs more. I believe it's like 2250 gold, so you're paying almost like 1,000 more gold for literally a tank that basically is going to be the same as one for 1,500, just slightly less armor, slightly more pen, and the ability to use sandbags and get a little bit more HP. Personally, between the two, I'm going with this guy. It's obviously easy for me since I have both already, but like honestly, if you don't have either of these, get the Britannia Panther. Yeah, those are the 22 tanks that are available for the second portion of the Black Friday, Hack Friday event. If you don't have any of these tanks and you're looking to get some, this is definitely your chance. Do not expect these to show up in the auction. I would be surprised if they do. There is no point in trying to sell a tank in Black Friday and then also turn around, spin it, and sell in the auction. So hopefully we're going to see a different lineup altogether for our auction this year. I hope this video was at least a little bit informative and kind of, if you were looking to buy a tank during the Black Friday event, kind of gives you an idea. There are definitely some ones to stay away from, and there's definitely some ones that I would purchase, especially if you have the gold for them. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until I see you in the next one, take it easy. Bye-bye.